The Orrery by Joe Hewlett. Once upon a time there were two great friends, and their names were Dr. Samuel Plum and Professor Angus MacFarlane. And, although they really were great friends, they were forever quarrelling. They really enjoyed a good argument with each other more than anything. They would quarrel over their game of chess. They would go out together and play golf and quarrel about that. But those arguments were very tame compared to their disagreements over politics. Dr. Plum was a conservative and Professor MacFarlane was a socialist, and their wrangles about their differing beliefs became very heated. Sometimes their wives got very tired of the constant bickering. Mrs. Plum would sigh and say to her husband, "If you can't get on with Angus, why don't you go and play golf with someone else?" "Good gracious," Dr. Plum would reply, "I shouldn't enjoy it half so much without Angus to argue with." More than anything else, the two friends would disagree about religion. Dr. Plum was a Christian, and Professor MacFarlane was an atheist, and they would quarrel interminably. Professor MacFarlane was a tall, thin man with a rather long, lugubrious face and very large feet. Dr. Plum was short and round, with a pink face and a shiny, bald head. "I simply do not know how you can believe such absolute rubbish," said Professor MacFarlane one morning as they approached the 8th green. "What rubbish is that then?" asked Dr. Plum, hurrying along behind him. He had rather short legs and always had some difficulty keeping up with his tall friend. "God making the world in 7 days, and Adam and Eve getting thrown out of the Garden of Eden. Complete balderdash," replied the professor scornfully. "Early people made up the lovely old legends in accordance with their knowledge of the universe as they knew it," said Dr. Plum patiently. "They were probably written in the late Iron Age," he went on. How can we understand minds from such a distant time? Perhaps the stories were meant to be read for the deep, ancient truths they contain, and were not intended to be taken literally, any more than the parables of Jesus. We know there was no individual Good Samaritan, for example, but the story is true for all generations. What it does show is that all peoples everywhere, from the earliest times, have believed in a great, beneficent power, which they called God. Everybody's story is different. Some primitive South American tribes say that the first man and woman were hatched from a great silver egg in the jungle. "Well, I am not primitive," announced Professor MacFarlane, "and I do not need such mind-softening rubbish. I certainly can't believe in this so-called God of yours, going around with his magic wand, making birds and bees and butterflies. How can an intelligent man like you swallow such piffle?" the professor demanded, waving a golf club to emphasise his point. "Well," countered Dr. Plum, "what I can't understand is how all the marvellous things in the universe could simply have arrived out of nothing. Someone or something must have started it all off." "I'll tell you what started it all off," said Professor MacFarlane, slicing his golf ball and becoming quite agitated. "There was a colossal, tremendous explosion at the dawn of history. Something exploded. It may have been a single atom, or maybe an enormous supernova, throwing fragments in all directions, forming the planets and stars and all the objects in the universe. Then, millions of years later, as the planets cooled, certain atoms drifted together in the seas on our own planet of Earth, and these vital elements of life met and formed early basic cells, and from them we have all gradually evolved along with all other living creatures." At the end of this lengthy discourse, Professor MacFarlane hold a rather long putt, and holding his putter aloft, added triumphantly, "So there!" All right," said Dr. Plum. "That's a perfectly reasonable theory. I have nothing against the idea. But here's my dilemma. I want to know who caused the atom or the supernova to blow up. Where did it come from? Who pushed the button, eh? Who stirred the primeval soup and got the whole thing going? Now, that's what I want to know." And, not to be defeated, Dr. Plum also sank a good putt and added, "All square, I think, Angus." "Nobody pushed the button, you silly chump. Nobody stirred the soup," retorted Professor McFarlane scornfully. "I can just imagine your God, with a beard and a long brown dressing gown, stirring up the primeval sea with a great big soup ladle. A likely story, I must say." "Well then," said Dr. Plum, "how did it start? You tell me that." "Pure chance," replied Professor McFarlane. "A complete accident." "You're telling me the whole thing was a complete accident?" asked Dr. Plum. "Certainly," asserted the Professor. "A complete accident." "Oh, I see," said Dr. Plum thoughtfully, with a rather odd expression on his face. "Just an accident, was it?" The old friends felt that this subject had been exhausted, at least for the time being, and feeling thoroughly refreshed by their mental battle, fell to arguing about whether they should attend an erudite conference at the university, where Dr. Plum lectured in anatomy and Professor McFarlane in astronomy.